Hello, and today I'm going to show what I'm doing with the new stereo console that I had gotten. I'm making some legs. This was the leg before. As you can see, it was just sat upright, and this is the new leg that I'm making to try to make it look more 50-ish, 60s. You know, it'll sit like that. So, that's how that leg will sit. And you can see in the 50s, 60s, they kind of had that, the legs on some of their furniture was kind of, almost like rocket fins. And I really I like that so much better than this is just kind of utilitarian. That just kind of sat straight up like that, and that's not very interesting, not really nice to look at. So anyway, what I did was, of course, I made this out of some oak. And I went and got some oak, and of course, this has veneer over it with whatever filler. I don't know if you can see too well right there, but anyway, let's see if I can get it on the side. So anyway, I just bought this wood right here. Went ahead and glued the two pieces of that together, and you can see the veneer. This is a junk piece right here. You can see the veneer a little better. Like, let's see if I can get it in here, right in the middle out of the two pieces, and you can see the edge. On each side, there's an edge. This right here is just the marks caused by using a. Of course, most people have a contractor saw. And so, you're going to leave grooves and burn marks if you're a terrible carpenter like I am. So, but it works. A little bit of sanding takes those out. So anyway, so what I did is after I put everything together, I came up with I cut the square pieces of wood, glued them together, and then cut them out on the table saw. Of course, if you have a $10,000 cabinet maker's, finish saw, really nice, you're probably not going to have all this stuff going on, burn marks and teeth marks and everything. But anyway, this is what I was left with as far as the leg. So you can see, it's double the thickness. And just Elmer's glue and some clamps. What I did, though, is I went ahead and sanded all of them, and I'll show you how to do that. But, of course, I don't even get upset about it anymore, because pretty much you got to expect that when I got to the last leg and I was actually getting down to where there wasn't as many teeth marks and burn marks and everything, the belt on the sander decided to go. And unfortunately, I didn't have any, so I ordered some. So I'm waiting on the last leg to be done. But how I sand is holding with both hands, with the sander running. I just kind of go back and forth like this, slightly. But I don't push it real hard. I just kind of let it float. What you want to avoid is pushing on one end or another, or maybe just holding it one hand. Because what will happen is you'll, without even realizing it, you'll actually sand the ends, and you'll kind of make it rounded. So my idea is to hold it a little loose, let it float, and then just, kind of move it around a little, and that helps it sand it faster. And it's tempting to put a real heavy grit sandpaper on there so you can just grind it down, but it's better to go slow, because it's better to, sand it slow and not take off too much than to accidentally, sand too far, or accidentally, bump it, and, you're taking a good corner off. Then you're changing the whole, if you round one of these corners off too much, you're changing the whole look of it. Of course, I'll be rounding them off a little bit, but anyway, but that's how I do it, no matter what side I'm on. I just kind of, two hands, and I just kind of, let it float, move it back and forth, and make sure that I'm not rounding any of these off. If you notice, even if you're sanding without just sanding by hand, if you're not careful, if you sand something that's pretty soft, you can see it really fast. You'll actually sand, the ends will be rounded up because you, without realizing it, you're actually rocking it. You know, every time you're pushing, you're, very, almost imperceptibly moving it up like this and back. So you just kind of want to, that's why when the machine's running, when I'm hand sanding, sometimes I'll go in one direction without this being run. And this is, I'm talking about hand sanding, and then I'll flip it around and, go in the same, and just, set it on there flat and push and try not to rock it and rotate it. But that goes the same for here. Anyway, and you want to go, I kind of try to go with the grain on the edges that matter, wherever direction the grain is. But when you go and try to set this thing up, of course you're going to have to figure out, this is a small piece of wood. I'm using a table saw, contractor saw, so it's not very accurate. The blade never, no matter how much you adjust it, you'll make one cut and the blade will be straight, and then the next cut it'll be kind of uneven, and the deck for it is not, this right here is the added on piece to the deck on each side. Those are never actually really flat, but you can work around it, by sanding, and none of this is real critical that it's completely squared and perfect. You can see here I drilled my holes, and I can show you on another video how I did that. I actually had to match it up to the old pegs because I'm actually fitting this onto the piece of wood that these old legs used to go on. So, they have to kind of match up the holes and everything really well. So, but anyway, what I did on this one is I cut the longest piece first, obviously, because, if I cut the longest piece, I've got more to hold on to. If I cut the short piece off and then try cutting the long piece, this piece is going to be separated, and, I don't want to move it. So I cut the longest, the hardest piece first, with, giving me a more solid piece. And you'll have to figure out little tricks for, figuring out how to use, this right here to hold your wood on angles, and, what angles and what pieces to cut first. So it's kind of a little bit of a puzzle. I always keep junk pieces of wood around, and sometimes I have to cut some, but cut my own. But I use these to help. If you're cutting something really small, or it's something that you can't get a good grip on, because it's so small, or even something like this, a piece of backing kind of helps, especially if it's hanging over, like that, kind of helps, stabilize it. The other thing is I never, my own personal rule is I never put my fingers in front of the blade. I like my fingers, and if sometimes what I'll do if I need to, cut something up close, is I will actually rest my arm on the table, so, and then I will take a stance so I'm not, making sure there's nothing to trip on or anything, and that way, as I push something through, my arm is on the table and I can't go any farther. My fingers can't get in the blade, but I still don't put them in front. I just use this method of, locking my hand down onto the table, putting a little weight on it, so my weight is pushing down on my hand and not forward. A lot of times people will be pushing forward and they're not, holding their arm on anything, and for whatever piece of wood breaks, or the saw kicks, next thing you know, you're into the blade. So you want to avoid that at all costs. But anyway, I'll make another video, kind of show you one or two things that I did for setting it all up. All right.